Popular YouTube star and emerging rapper Lil Peep died last night right before he was set to perform in Tucson. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Guy Atchley.
And I'm Stella Inger. KGUN 9 obtained these crime scene photos just outside The Rock. It's a music venue near Broadway and Euclid where Lil Peep was going to perform.
You can see his tour bus parked right outside the venue. Not on your sides, Priscilla Casper is there with more on the investigation.
Good evening, Guy and Stella. Yeah, Tucson police say they found Lil Peep unresponsive inside of his tour bus from an apparent drug overdose from Xanax. If you take a look behind me, you can see a growing memorial, fans coming out here all afternoon, pouring out flowers and candles.
Murder of a 20-year-old rapper in Broward County. It appears two men were trying to rob him. CBS 4's Aurelia Ortega is working this story live in Deerfield Beach. Aurelia.
Rutabe, this is something that has really stunned fans of XXXTentacion, a rising star here in South Florida, where he was gunned down in broad daylight. The 20-year-old rapper from Plantation, whose real name was Jose Onfroy, was leaving Riva Motorsport when he was shot.
Sudden and shocking death of rap star Juice WRLD. The 21-year-old, who was named Billboard's Best New Artist this year, suffered a medical emergency at Chicago's Midway Airport. Tribute streaming in this morning, and Eva Pilgrim is here with the latest. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, George. Juice WRLD seemed to be on top of the world. His music career exploding. The video for his hit Lucid Dreams with almost 400 million views on YouTube. This morning, so many questions as to how a seemingly healthy 21-year-old could die so unexpectedly.
Big crowd here, lots of fans here. What's really impressed me tonight is the neighbors. Neighbors loved him. One guy said, you know what, I'm too old. I've never heard his music, but what a great neighbor. What a great kid. In fact, the best kid you'll ever meet. Miller died here just before noon. TMZ reporting it was a drug overdose. On social media, many fans blame Miller's death on ex-girlfriend Ariana Grande.
My name is David Peisner. I'm a freelance writer. I wrote about Lil Peep and the investigation into his death, and I've been writing for Rolling Stone and the New York Times and a lot of other places for probably 25 years now. So, you know, like the cases of X and the case of Peep were often, you know, they've often been kind of grouped together for, you know, fairly understandable reasons. You know, timing and, you know, kind of like the music they made. But I think that they're pretty different. Like there was a different thing that I was really interested with X's story, which was that, yes, he absolutely was getting hated on, you know, on social media and whatever, but that was happening to him before he was dead too.
Oh yeah.
Social media will always be full of negative shit about people who deserve it and who don't deserve it.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a slightly different case than with Pete. If you wanted to look at the connections between like the hate that he's gotten online, I mean, some of it is just like knee-jerk visual shit. Oh, you know, like Demi Lovato is like essentially a model. She's looks like the girl next door, whereas Pete has a face full of tattoos. People sort of like, that guy looks like a bad seed. That guy looks problematic. And that certainly goes the same for X. Right. And maybe to some extent the same with Juice WRLD. I know his story less. You know, I think that there will always be people that are going to blame, you know, the person who overdoses, especially when they conform to the, you know, he looks like a, you know, kind of like a street kid or whatever.
You know, in comparison to people like Mac Miller and, you know, like Demi Lovato, it's just really frustrating to see other kids demonize and wish death upon other kids, you know. And
I'm not saying that there's a good, like, that you should make allowances for this, but
right,
like, social media is so toxic in general. People don't need a pretext for saying bad shit about people online. It's
not
just,
at all.
Like that's kind of like the baseline. Everyone's, you know, like everyone's gonna get hate. Right.
In your opinion, like what do you think generally makes the difference between people like X Juice and, you know, people like Mac Miller and whatnot?
a good question. Let me make it a little bit easier. So you're talking about people who are all relatively the same age-ish, kind of operating in the, but think about it maybe from the standpoint of how do people talk about Prince? How do people talk about Tom Petty? Now, granted, those people did not live in this social media world, whether it's X or Juice WRLD, or all these people are like, you know, social media, they've grown up with it, it's part of their thing. So there's going to be that difference. But you certainly you don't hear those kind of things said about Tom Petty or name any other middle-aged, you know, rock star who also overdosed. People who are my age who are running, you know, a publication or even younger than me, but you know, they are going to be less informed. They're the ones who are going to make that quick knee-jerk distinction. Whereas, you know, they'll know the Tom Pettys and they'll know their body of work, and they'll know what their music, you know, meant and what it was about, and they can put, you know, so much more context around their life and their death. Like, all of these people's lives were, you know, in terms of people who died, they were very short, and so there isn't as much context to put around it. You know, you think about people like Peep and X, they were only famous for like a year before they died, you know.
True.
And Peep, you could even say, wasn't even really famous yet. I mean, he really hadn't, you know, broken big. I mean, yes, there were stories about him and things like that, but so I mean, there's less context to put around them. So in a sense, their death ends up defining their life a lot more. Mac Miller had a little bit more of a track record just as an artist. Same with Demi Lovato, I guess. But maybe it's just that she's, because of the Disney stuff, you know, she's just been in the, you know, public, you know, eye longer. So there is a little bit more context to put around their lives. Juice WRLD was like popping like as he died. Like, I mean, same with X really, I guess. But like, you know, like those people were just, and Peep was, like I said, like kind of before that. So there's just less chance to put context around who these people were. We haven't spent 5 years listening to their albums, getting to know them, seeing them on, you know, TV and on the red carpet and blah, blah, blah. Here's this guy, he's kind of weird looking, he's got a bunch of face tattoos, now he's dead. That's the whole, that becomes the whole story. It's lazy, and it's lazy journalism. Maybe there's something about, you know, you kind of like live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean,
very much so.
If you're coming up in social media where, you know, everything is going to be it's going to happen, and like it's all about this image that you're portraying, when it comes down, it just comes down just as quick and twice as hard. I'm not saying that that's a fact. I'm just saying that if you look at kind of, these guys were the product of social media, they're the product of SoundCloud, and, you know, giveth and taketh away, I guess.
What is like the central cog to you that, you know, is the dictator of, you know, this person looks a little better than this person? You know, is it looks? Is it, you know, media coverage? Is it how poppin' they are? You know, are they up in the culture? Like,
okay, so there's a couple different things. Can you fit this person's story into an existing narrative that editors and readers will understand? It's kind of like what I was saying about how Rolling Stone could look at Peep's story and say they could see a little bit of Kurt Cobain, they could see a little bit of, you know, Jimi Hendrix, just, you know, burn out, die young. So can we fit this in to an existing narrative? There's too much culture now. There's too much. It's like a fire hose. You know, things happen so quickly, and then they're gone quickly, and who knows what kind of staying power any of these artists would have really had. You know, I guess what I would say is that, you know, the coverage is always going to be dictated by what, you know, the people making those decisions can relate to.